students, in this video of ours, we are going to learn about the biodiversity conservation. Now, why do we need to conserve our biodiversity? First of all, we will learn that why there is an urgent need to conserve our biodiversity. And the second thing which we will learn is that how can we conserve our biodiversity. First of all, why should we conserve? What is the need to conserve our biodiversity? And the second thing is that why and how we can conserve our biodiversity. Biodiversity conservation. Now, why biodiversity is needed to be conserved? Why should we conserve? Conservation means why should we protect it? Why should we preserve it? What is the need to conserve it? Biodiversity conservation is necessary because of the following reasons. Many commercial products, see, there are three groups which we can divide why there is need of biodiversity conservation is, we can divide it into three groups. The views are different, and these three views are basically, one is narrowly utilitarian view, second is broadly utilitarian view, and third is ethical view. Now, narrowly utilitarian means if we see in a narrow perspective, the conservation of biodiversity is important because we are using many things from the biodiversity. We are using many products. We are using food, we are using fiber, we are using wood, we are using many industrial products. So medicines, other products. So there are so many things which the biodiversity is giving us. So if we want to if we keep on continuing the incoming of these products in our life for our comforts, for our utility, so we need to conserve biodiversity, because until and unless the biodiversity is conserved, we will not be getting these products. So one is this, and this is narrowly utilitarian view, where we are narrowly in a narrow perspective, we are seeing that what is the importance of biodiversity for us. The another view is broadly utilitarian. Broadly means if we see in a broader perspective, we can analyze that we are getting so many things from the biodiversity which we have never thought of. For example, oxygen. We are getting oxygen from the plants. Suppose you are going to the hospital and buying a cylinder of oxygen. How much money would it cost? And one cylinder would not last even for a few minutes. So you have to think about that in broader perspective, what all things we are getting from biodiversity. We are getting oxygen. We are getting our ecological balance of the environment. Then we are getting rainfall. Then we are getting good quality of soil from where we can cultivate many different things. So all these and the pleasures, aesthetic pleasures, we have to go when we are going and visiting a forest, when we are going in a park, when we are visiting a pond. They all have the aesthetic values. So all these things we are getting from biodiversity. So biodiversity is giving us many things, and all these ecosystem services which we are getting is because of the biodiversity, the beauty of the nature, the oxygen, purity of the nature, the rainfall, the good quality of soil, all these things which are required for a good nature, required for a beautiful, serene nature, that is given to us by biodiversity. Think about, you get up in the morning and go and just stand in your garden, or go and see some plants. How peaceful it is, how serene it is. So all these services we are getting from biodiversity only. So this is in a broader perspective. Then there is another ethical. Now, what is ethical? Ethical is knowing that we are sharing this earth with lot many other species. Not only human beings are there on earth, there are variety of organisms which are sharing our earth with us. So we should be thinking about them as our earth mates. Like you take care of your classmates, you take care of your family members. Similarly, we should be taking care of our earth mates with whom we are sharing the earth, with whom we are sharing the environment. So we should be taking care of them also. We should be thinking about their survival. We should be thinking about their comfort. We should be thinking about giving them good habitat, because they are not asking much from us. What they are asking is only a good habitat, a conducive environment where they can live happily. So this is the ethical point of view. So 3 points are there: narrowly utilitarian, broadly utilitarian, and ethical issues. So many commercial important products are obtained by nature, such as food, fiber, wood, and countless industrial products. All medicines we are getting from it, all other commercial products we are getting from the different plants. Then certain activities and products cannot be accomplished without the help of nature, such as production of oxygen. Pollination. Pollination is not possible, and until and unless the pollination is done, fertilization is not possible. So for pollination, you require biodiversity. For fertilization, you require pollination. For forest, you require pollination. So all these things are interrelated. It's about conserving all. We cannot conserve few things which are of our use and leave the other things. We have to conserve all for the beauty of the nature. Intangible benefits such as aesthetic pleasure. Aesthetic pleasure is visiting a pond, visiting a lake, visiting a forest, visiting a park. They all have their aesthetic pleasure. That we derive from nature. Conserving the species we share our planet with, and passing the rich legacy of biodiversity to our future generation is our ethical duty. So this is the ethical point of view, the ethical perspective, that we should take care of our earthmates. We should take care of our planet, that we should leave this planet in such a condition that our future generation will also enjoy this beautiful nature. So these are the points for which we should conserve our biodiversity. There is an urgent need to conserve the biodiversity. Now, how can we conserve the biodiversity? Biodiversity can be conserved by two major things. One is in situ and one is ex situ. In situ is in the situation, in the site. That means wherever they are, we have to conserve them there only. We have to protect them there only. That is called in situ, in the site. And ex situ is outside the site. Suppose when there is threatened, or there are many endangered species, so we should take them out of their habitat, which is not suiting them now, and we should go take them to another situation which is X site, to a different site, and then we can protect them there. So these are the two approaches to conserve the biodiversity. One is in situ and one is ex situ. In situ is conserving the biodiversity at the same site. Wherever the organism is, wherever the plant is, wherever the animal is, in their natural habitat only, in the same site, we are conserving them. That is called in situ. So in situ, in order to conserve biodiversity better, some of the world's biodiversity hotspots. Now what happened to conserve them in the site wherever they are, the ecologists have identified certain hotspots. And why they are called hotspots? Because they are having a high degree of biodiversity. That means the area where you are finding a great variety of organisms. That is called the hotspot, where there is high degree of biodiversity and endemism. What is endemism? Endemism means the species which are local. That means you will endemism. You will not find that species anywhere else. For example, kangaroo are from Australia. So they are endemic. The species which is particularly found in that particular area. That is endemism. So the hotspots have been identified, and these hotspots are having high degree of biodiversity, and these hotspots are taken care of very carefully. So they are being protected and they are being taken care of. Different governments of the different countries, and they have been taken care of different NGOs. So they are under the protection, these hotspots. Why? Because these hotspots are having a high degree of biodiversity. In India also we are having these hotspots. We are having Western Ghats, we are having Indo-Burma border, and then we are these days approximately 35 hotspots have been identified all over the world. Then there are sacred groups. Then there are Ramsar sites. Ex situ is outside the site. That means the species of plant or animal which is threatened species, which is not able to survive well at that site. We have to take that species from that habitat and we have to keep them in a different site where we can give them the special conditions, we can give them the special care, or we can give them the special protection. So these sites, they have taken out from there and then they have been shifted to a special settings. So all these zoological parks, botanical gardens, wildlife parks, these all are the ex situ conservation, where we have taken those species, wild animals, plants, and other animals from their natural habitat, and we have shifted them to the special settings where we can protect them. So that is ex situ conservation. Nowadays, the gametes of endangered species can be preserved. Now, the latest techniques have come, latest technologies have come in the field of ecology as well. So now what they are doing is they are preserving the gametes of endangered species, and they are viable by methods such as cryopreservation. Cryopreservation is a method by which you can keep that gamete viable for a longer period of time, and then afterwards they can be fertilized in vitro under laboratory conditions and followed by propagation through tissue culture methods. Similarly, the seeds can also be preserved. Seed banks were earlier also were there, pollen banks are there, seed banks are there, and now the gametes can also be preserved. So gametes of endangered species can also be preserved. So these are the ways by which we can conserve our biodiversity. These are the methods which are being followed by our ecologists to conserve the biodiversity. What are hotspots? Hotspots are the large regions containing exceptional concentration, because they are having a very high degree, rich degree of diversity. So lot many species you can find at a smaller area. So that area can be protected and that area can be identified as hotspot. So large regions containing exceptional concentration of plant and animal endemism of that particular area only, and experiencing high rate of habitat loss, where there is danger of habitat loss. So that those areas are called biodiversity hotspots. Now, biodiversity hotspots are a method to identify those regions of the world where attention is needed to address biodiversity loss and to guide investments in conservation. This idea was first developed by Norman Maize in 1988. Now, what is the criteria for an area to be qualified as a hotspot? It is to qualify as a hotspot, a region must meet two criteria. That it must contain at least 1,500 species of vascular plants as endemics. That means that special area is having that local species, or at least 1,500 species. And it has to have lost 70%, less than or equal to 70% of its original native habitat. That means the habitat loss is there. There is danger of habitat loss. So these are the criteria which have to be taken care of before identifying any region as a biodiversity hotspot. Now, these are the important hotspots: Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Himalaya, Mediterranean basins, Indo-Burma, Horn of Africa, Madagascar, and Indian Ocean Islands. These are the different all over the world. And this is Western Ghat. So Western Ghat, this is in India. This is the hotspot. This is biodiversity hotspot. Western Ghat. Then Himalayan region. So Himalayan region is all mountains of the world. Then Indo-Burma. Indo-Burma is another hotspot of India. Sacred Grove is a segment of landscape, that means a small area which is containing vegetation, life forms, and geographical features delimited and protected by human societies under the belief that to keep them in a relatively undisturbed state is expression of an important relationship of human with the divine or with nature. That means the human beings think that they are very sacred. For example, people tree, since our ancestors used to worship that people tree. So these are the area which they don't want to, the human beings don't want to disturb. They are preserving, they are conserving that particular area, thinking that it is divine, thinking that it is very holy, and thinking that they all are to be worshipped. So that way, this area, the human beings are conserving, thinking that they are very divine areas, and they are called sacred groves. The sacred groves are conserved on the basis of religion, faith, and belief of the community. So local communities, you will find some area where they go, they worship the plants, and that area, they will not let anybody disturb that area. They will always want to conserve that area. So that area is called sacred groves. They are small patches of forest or natural vegetation dedicated by local communities to ancestral spirit or deities, and have traditional mean of biodiversity. So in a way, they are also conserving biodiversity, and there is biodiversity in the name of sacred groves. So these sacred groves are repositories of rare and endemic species. So there you will find the species which are local species, endemic species are there, and very rare. So they have to be conserved. The Ramsar Convention was there on wetlands. What are wetlands? The damp, moist land near a water reservoir. That is called wetland. So the Ramsar Convention on wetlands of international importance, especially as a waterfall habitat, is an international treaty for the conservation and sustainable use of wetlands. So this was the convention, which was basically, the treaty was basically for conservation and sustainable use of the wetlands. And it is also known as the Convention on Wetlands. It is named after the city of Ramsar. Why we are calling them Ramsar sites? Because there is one city, Ramsar, in Iran. And because on the name of that city, we call them Ramsar sites. Why? Because in this city, the convention was signed in 1971. So in Ramsar, this convention was signed for the conservation and sustainable use of wetlands. That's why these sites are called Ramsar sites. Now, what are the Ramsar sites? So these are all Ramsar sites of India. Endangered are the species which are at the risk of becoming extinct. They are called endangered species. And the record of these endangered species is kept in red data book. Red is for danger. So when the species are endangered, the data of these endangered species is kept in red data book. And what are the reasons of endangerment? Overexploitation, habitat destruction, then introduction of exotic species, alien species, global warming, limited distribution, then global aggregation, pollution, disease. These are the damage from the extreme climatic conditions. So these are the different reasons why a species become endangered. And when the species become endangered, there is all the more urgent need to protect that species. Otherwise, it will become extinct. And as we have discussed, that we have not yet discovered many species, and they might become extinct even before we discover them. So these are the examples of the tiger, the endangered species. Example: Bengal tiger, white Bengal tiger, male and female sparrow. Then panda, giant panda. Largest flower. And this flower is having very foul smell, not dirty smell. The foul smell comes from this flower. That's why the flies and these insects, they are attracted to the foul odor of the flower, and they help it pollinate. Channel-billed toucan. And its beak is like channel. Why do we need to conserve? Because if we not conserve them, we will also be finished. So to preserve the ecological diversity and our life support system. What is our life support system? Water, air, soil. If we do not conserve biodiversity, we will not get this life support system. Preserve the genetic diversity of plants and animals for better growth and breeding. As the earth heats up, oceans expand, causing sea levels to rise, flooding coastal cities. Storms and drought will become more frequent in places where they were non-existent. Cutting down trees or deforestation will cause global warming, increase in a faster rate. Global warming. So these are all. Now, these conservation projects can be taken up by the government. The government has taken many projects And then there is community also, NGOs also, non-government organization, they are also doing. Extinction is forever. We must act now. Time is running out.